Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Dark Shadows Reviews on Gemmy Master Animatronics, and today what I'm going to be showing you is how to change a transistor or capacitor, pretty much any component besides the sound amplifier. I will make a separate video on that on your motherboard. Right here is just a bunch of stuff that could be used during soldering, and I'm going to kind of walk you through what each of them are. Obviously, number one is your soldering station. This is a little bit more of a fancy one. You could get one of the little $10 kits off of Amazon that are the handheld ones. That's not a problem if you choose to go that way. I just prefer the soldering station. It's not too much more money. This one was $39.99. They come with a bunch of different color options. This one's actually brand new. I just opened it, so this will be the first time I'm using it. The reason why I got a new one is because I have another one that's actually at a garage that I work out of a lot as well. So instead of taking it back and forth, I just opted to get a second one. I have 3 handheld and 2 workstations. I'm actually thinking about getting a third one to keep on my desk. One for the collection room, one for my desk in my office, and one for my garage, because rather than carrying it all over the place and driving it back and forth, etc., it's just easier to have one for each spot. Again, they're cheap. They're not expensive. You could go for expensive ones that are over $100. There's really no point for doing this kind of work. If you're working on computers and PCs and you're changing components on there, or you're working on a more high-end motherboard, yeah, definitely don't get one of these ones. But yeah, so this is your soldering station. Obviously, your soldering iron right here has a spot. These right here are called helping hands, so those will hold the motherboard for you. If you don't like those, some people don't, and I'm also one of those people that don't really like them all too much. There are other alternatives that I'll get into. This is obviously your controls to set the temperature, and I'm assuming that this right here might be brightness. This is a sponge for cleaning the soldering tip, so I'll show you that as well. This is your spool of solder. This would come off and you can change the spool. Pretty simple. Now in this kit, it came with a good amount of stuff for $40. This is your owner's manual here. I highly recommend reading this. If you don't know how to use a soldering iron or soldering station before, definitely read that. So I'm going to get that out of the way. This came in the kit. Now this is basically kind of like a steel wool kind of, but I think it's brass, and this just cleans the soldering tip, so you would just dip it in there. I don't need to open this one because I already have one. This was, I think, 12 bucks. So I don't need this metal tin. I can just keep putting my new ones in here, because over time these will actually degrade and not be as good and clean anymore. It takes a very long time for that to happen though, so you don't have to worry about that right away. It came in the kit. This is a solder sucker. This pretty much, once you heat up the solder on the board or wherever you're working, you push this down, you have this down and ready, you heat the solder point, put this end, the white tip on it, and then it takes all that solder off. Now this came in the kit, so this is a nice budget-friendly one for about 10 bucks. You can get a 5-pack, I think. I don't like these ones. I used them for years, and then I ended up finding this guy. This one was around $20 for this one. You have to constantly change the tips as they're a silicone, and it comes with replacements. There's not too many, so you will eventually need to refill that, and they do sell those separate, so it's not a big deal. But this one right here, this is definitely a good go-to, and I am going to link all these products in the description for you guys. So I'm going to get this cheaper one out of the way because I don't like using them. It's a good backup, however. Came with 2 sets of tweezers. These are good for holding wires in place or pulling components off if you're having a difficult time. This is just another piece of solder here. This came with my handheld kit. And this, with the spool here, you can just pull it and bring it to where you need it. With this, you know, you got to hold it in your hand, so this hand's completely occupied, and you got to put it where you need it. This is just for reference here, so I can show you. I don't obviously need that for this video. This is a wrench that came with the kit, just to tighten the helping hands on. And then these are spare soldering tips here. The soldering tip that is on this soldering iron looks like that, and they give you one spare, which is this one right here, and all the rest are for different applications. This one is for like plastic welding. This is for a larger area the solder. Same with this one. This is for a really fine solder area. I find for the application of the Gemmy props or any type of animatronic and toy robot, this is generally the one that I go to. So I don't typically have to change it out. And if you do buy good soldering tips, you don't actually have to change them for a very long time. They will last you a good while. So if you are looking to change the tip, don't do this while it's hot. Sometimes I have done that, and the way I would go about doing that is using a pair of pliers. But you just unscrew it here, pull this off, and then obviously if it is hot, you don't set it down on something such as wood. This comes off, and this is the piece that heats up. You would put your new one right on, obviously reverse the process, tighten this guy up, be careful not to cross thread it, and there you go, you just changed your soldering tip. My last soldering tip, I literally just changed it, and I was using it for 2 years. So if you take care of it by, dabbing it on some water and then cleaning it in the steel wool here, it will last you a very long time. I can promise you that. So I'm going to get this wrench out of the way, and I'm going to get these spare soldering tips out of the way. And then this is rosin paste flux. Now this is if you're having a difficult time getting the solder to stick and your soldering tip's already clean, you could dip the soldering tip into this, as well as put a little bit of this on the area that you're soldering, and then it will allow for a better connection. I do not need that for right now because what I'm going to be doing isn't going to require that. So I'm just going to go ahead and get a motherboard and show you what to do. Now, if you don't like the helping hands, I'm one of the people that don't, but I am going to be using it for the purpose of this video, just to make it easier so I don't have to put so much stuff on this little table. But they do make this. This is another type of helping hands. Basically, this has a spring. You put the motherboard in there, and then these two ends will hold it in place. These, if you loosen up these two plastic screws, will allow you to slide it back and forth. This right here is a soldering iron holder, and this was $17, so it's actually a very nice product. Again, I'll link this in the description. And with it only being $17, it comes with another steel wool for cleaning, as well as this right here. This is pretty much just another one of those little sponges and a soldering iron holder. I don't like these. They're very small and just aren't very useful. They don't really do the job all too well. But this is a very nice piece. I just got this as well. I've been eyeing it up for a long time, and I finally just said, you know what, I'm going to buy it. Because I do have a set of helping hands that was close to $40, and I just do not like them at all. So give me 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and get a motherboard, and then I will show you different types of transistors and how you could test it. I'm not going to test them in this video only because my multimeter sadly isn't here. I do have to get another one. It is at my my second garage, so I am going to just tell you a little bit about how you're going to change them, and then in another video I will show you how to test transistors. And I'm sorry I can't do it all right now, but I know I promised everybody I was going to show them how to do this, so I'm just going to get it out of the way. Okay guys, so here I am back with a motherboard, which would be this guy right here. Now, I don't even remember what this is to be honest. But basically a little rundown. This is your IC chip, or your sound chip is what people used to call them. These are capacitors right here. These guys. These are transistors. So transistor or tri would have 3 legs. 1, 2, 3. And on this board there's only 4 of them. So this is quite a simple board to look at. And then these little diodes over here, little resistors right here. Now these, technically when you replace them, they should always be the same color, as well as these should be the same same number here. So for example, you would type in 4.7 UF 50 volt on Amazon, and it would come up. I personally always purchase my resistors and transistors and everything, basically all my components, through Amazon. Now with this, I cut off all the wires because they are not necessary for the sake of this video. But yeah, obviously when you're working on a motherboard, especially a Gemmy board, they're going to be a little bit more involved. and less space being on them to kind of screw around. This is just a really basic example just to show you guys what to do. And these transistors, if you can look at them, it's the top 4 numbers, which is 8050. And then this one is a C945. I'm not sure. I don't think it would go by the P19ZC. But yeah, those are the 2 types of transistors on here. If I don't have them, I'm just going to replace them with a totally different kind for the sake of this video. But just know that you will always have to change them with the correct number. So this I'm going to get to in a second, as well as this. I bought a pack of 100 toothbrushes on Amazon for, I can't remember how much it was. It was a very long time ago, but it was probably close to like maybe $20. It was not that bad. So I would definitely recommend doing so if you're planning on doing motherboard repair. And the only reason why is because if you do have corrosion, isopropyl alcohol is a great way to clean it. You could also do things such as vinegar, but I personally prefer the isopropyl alcohol. So give me 1 second. I'm going to go ahead and set this up, and then I'll show you what to do from there. Okay guys, so as you can see, I turned on the soldering station right here. It's currently in Celsius. I'm not sure what the conversion is. You really should do this at about 250 degrees, not 357. I've been doing this for a while, so I'm pretty comfortable at doing it at this temperature. There have been times where I've done it at 896 degrees Fahrenheit, which is really hot, and I don't recommend you do that unless you're very comfortable with it. And even then, you shouldn't do it at all. But pretty much, you put it in the helping hands like this. I don't like these. They're a pain. They kind of move all around. But I'm just doing it to show you guys for the sake of this video. And I'm going to be changing this transistor out right over here just to show you how to do it. They are directional. That's something you're going to have to keep in mind. But before we get into that, let's say this board was decently corroded or had any type of corrosion whatsoever. It's a good idea to use isopropyl alcohol to clean off that corrosion. The corrosion could possibly come back, but if that's the case, you just go in it and you clean it again with some isopropyl alcohol. The only one I recommend is 99%. If you use anything less, it has too much water in it. So basically it's 99% isopropyl alcohol, which is pretty much 100%, but it's 99% isopropyl alcohol and then 1% water. The next one down I think is 97, which would be 3% water, 97% alcohol. And then when you get all the way down to even like 70%, that would be way too much water in the mixture to go on any type of electronics. But pretty much what I would do is I would open this. I would get my toothbrush and make sure it's a soft bristle brush. You don't want to use anything too rough. You dip it in here, dry it a little bit. You don't need too much, just a little bit. And then you never want to activate it with the alcohol. And then you just give it a little scrub. And then you would wait a couple minutes for it to dry. Even that was like way too much. But then again, I would use that normally for a full-size board. But by the time like a minute goes up, this stuff will all be evaporated. It evaporates very quickly and is just a good way to keep all your stuff looking brand new, all the traces clean, and make sure it has a really good solid connection all throughout. So now, obviously this is all heated up. You can tell because the temperature is staying stuck at a steady 357 there. But I'm going to go ahead and show you some transistor packs that I've picked up. So a lot of common ones on the Gemmy items would be D882, B772. These are the most common on Gemmy items. Power regulators would be an item such as this right here. This one right here. So pretty much like when you have an item that won't power on at all when you plug it in, the component that's fried would be most of the time your power regulators. But in this case, let's say you have a movement that's not working. So your 07 Jason's neck turn isn't turning. The mechanism is not working. The gear's fine, but the motor won't get power. And you went on the motherboard and you saw it was the track all the way to the right that is for the head movement. What you would do is you would unplug that track, and the way that I would be able to tell it's that track is by testing him with a test motor and plugging it into each harness and activating it and see which motor doesn't move. So whatever motor doesn't move, you know that's the track that you're supposed to be working on. And you'll see a series, basically a row of transistors in it. And then in that row, you could either opt to test them all with a multimeter. And Roger Gosselin back in the day actually uploaded a really good video showing how to test transistors. Pretty much if they're within spec of between, I think, 650 and 800, 800, I think it's, what do you set the multimeter to? I can't remember right now. I'm drawing a blank. But pretty much if it's set to 650 to 800, I think it's like milliamps, it's within spec. If it's way below 650 or way above 800, it's out of spec and you should change it. Me personally, whenever I have a movement that isn't working properly, I just change all of them in the track. Transistors are relatively cheap. I have gotten this whole bag right here for $5, and there's 100 pieces in this one. So that's one example. I've gotten this whole bag, again, another 100 pieces for like $7 or $8. These are D882s. These ones I didn't label. I want to say these are B77. Yeah, these are B772s. And then I have this one right here, which are some more D882s. This one I think was like $10. And then this whole kit, I have used a lot of them out of here between working on Peter's boards, a couple other people's boards, my own boards. I've used a lot of the ones out of here. So the ones I've needed are pretty much just done. And this was before I really knew how to search for them properly on my own. That I had just kind of bought packs like that to try and figure it out. So I'm going to keep this one. Again, this is not the proper number that I'm going to be replacing on here. This is literally just a tutorial to show you how to do it. So now that you have this all set up, like I said, we're going to be changing this transistor. I tested this one. We'll say this one's the one that tested bad. You are going to take your solder sucker. You're going to make sure that it's clicked down. You always want to have it in the ready position, because if you don't and you start there and fiddle with it to click it down while you're waiting to take it off, the solder could either harden back up again and dry, or won't even pay attention. You'll keep the soldering tip on the board and you'll actually end up damaging the trace. It's a very common occurrence to damage the trace. A trace is this green piece right here. This board is screwed up, went to something that I honestly have no idea what it is, so it really doesn't matter what I do to it. But so what you're gonna do is you're just gonna touch it right there, take the solder sucker right on like that. Now I don't know if you could really tell all too well, but it grabbed a good amount of the solder off. This way you're not screwing around with it, pulling on it on one side and then hoping it comes off. Again, you're going to touch it on there, move it around a couple times. And sometimes you'll do it and you'll have to do it a second time, third time, just to make sure you clear it all off. Like that time was a very good pass, and it ended up getting all of the solder off. And then you're going to go ahead on your third and final one. And I don't know if you guys saw that, but the entire transistor just moved. So now I was able to just pull it right out. Typically, you're going to want to use tweezers if it's in a tight area, but luckily this one has a good amount of space. So I was able to pull it out just like that. This one's bad. This one's garbage. Tested. It failed the test. It was not within spec. So now we're going to flip our motherboard around. And this is another very, very, very important piece of information that you have to listen to, because you will end up messing up if you don't. So as you can see, I pulled the transistor off of here. How can I tell I pulled it off of here by just flipping the board? One, you got to pay attention to the placement of where you just pulled even when you flip the board. And two, this little outline in white is showing you that that was a transistor. And it's directional. Now, if you want to take a second to look at that while I go ahead and pull this new transistor out, pretty much you look at the shape of the transistor. So you see on this new transistor, the back here is flat and the front is kind of curved. So it's like a half cylinder. If you look at the shape of it, the round part is facing away from us. So we know that when we go to put it in, you might want to just bend the legs a little bit, which I'll show you what I just did in 2 seconds. Pretty much the spacing on it might be a little bit of a pain, so you just bend the legs out a little, like I just did. When you first pull them out of the packaging, the legs are pretty much straight and uniform with one another. And again, you're going to have the round part facing away from us. Give me 1 second, I just dropped the transistor. Okay, sorry about that, guys. So you're going to have the round section, like I said, like that, facing away from us. And you're going to place that back onto the board, like so, making sure not to bend any of the legs. I personally like to push it down as far as I can, like that, to where it's nice and snug. And then you're going to go ahead and flip the board one more time back to this side. And we're just going to have it over here so it's nice and easy to get to. Let's see. How did I have it earlier? Okay, there we go. And then you're going to go ahead and clip it like that. Now, these are the legs right there sticking up, as you can tell. I'm going to go ahead and actually lower the camera a little bit and pick it up so it's easier for you guys to see it. I'm going to zoom in on the board. So you can see right here are the legs. That's what you're going to be soldering. So now what you're going to do, you can't see this, but I'm basically taking a little bit of solder, and actually for the sake of the video I'm going to use the handheld solder and not the spool, just so you guys can really see where I'm angling it. So let me go ahead and grab that, kind of throw it on the floor over here. Alright, so you're going to be taking the handheld solder, you're being very careful, or whatever solder you choose, and you're just going to put it onto the leg like that. I'm going to go ahead and grab this. Just touch it on the bottom there. Just a couple quick little taps. That's it. That's done. That's got connection now. So then you would go to the next one over. That's it. It's got connection. You're all done. Right here, done. You're completely done. Now you have full connection, and you can either test it with a multimeter, or you could go ahead and you can just plug in a motor to it, give it some power. Make sure that if you are using helping hands, they have rubber ends to them, because if they don't, you will ground out the board and you will fry more components, damage the IC chip here. So there's a lot of factors to it. Same thing with your hands. If you're actually ever working on motherboards, you should really consider wearing latex gloves or nitrile gloves, just so that you don't ground it out. I have fried props from plugging them in and holding the motherboard with my bare hands when I was younger and not knowing any better. So these are the tips I'm trying to give you so you don't make the same mistakes that I did. It's okay to make mistakes. I've screwed up a lot of stuff, over the years. I've been working on them since 2014. So that's been, 11 years now. And in the first probably year to year and a half, I screwed up quite a few life sizes, tabletops, everything else, you name it. It's just basically practice. Practice makes perfect with this stuff, and that's with anything. So now I can pretty much fix all this stuff without any help, and I know my good way around it. I've had a lot of people over the years that have helped me learn stuff, and I've taught a lot of people stuff as well. I had Bailey teach me a lot in the beginning, Kevin or Zorwa635, the Jemmy fan. I've had Chase, the inflatable god, teach me a bunch. Totally awesome, or totally animatronics, whatever you want to go by with him. Or Joseph from Australia, he's taught me a ton. And there's been a couple other people along the way that have taught me some stuff. But I mean, for the most part, I'm self-taught. And then now the outcome is I've learned how to fix a lot of stuff, and it's not just this stuff that I know how to fix. I started working on this stuff, but then I started moving to cell phones and computers and video game consoles, and just kept going up and up and up, and now I'm a full-time mechanic. So it's just, if you start with something like this, it could just help further your education and make you more handy and hands-on and skill, and increase your skill level, and you can just go up from there. But we're not done yet with this. I'm just going to show you a couple more little tips and tricks before I go. These legs right here, you can either just bend them off, which is kind of like the lazy way to do it, or you can invest in like a nice pair of side cutters or something and just cut them off. But pretty much when you bend them like that, it'll snap the legs, or like I said, you can use a pair of slide cutters or something. Sadly, I forgot to grab them for the video, so I'm doing it the old way here and just bending the legs off. Make sure the legs actually come off the board and they're not stuck to it, because if they are stuck to it, you could accidentally touch two solder joints and then fry a movement and then have to replace more transistors. So just always make sure that they come off. Secondly, when you're done, before you activate it, make sure that your solder points aren't touching. And luckily with this one, I can see, you might not be able to see on the camera, but there's plenty of space in between. And then the last thing is, when you're done soldering, or even when you're between soldering components, you should always clean off your soldering iron. Now I'm going to show you how to do that. This sponge, I already wet it. Obviously they're dry when you get it. Make sure you run under a little bit of water, just like that. Now you can see how shiny it got. Take some of this right here, just dab it in there a few times, and that's it. Now your soldering tip looks brand new. Then when you're all done, like I said, you're going to go ahead, you're going to test the board. You're going to test just that component or test the whole board. It's up to you. And then that's it. So now that we're done with this, I'm going to turn off the soldering station. I finished soldering everything. I'm going to throw my helping hands back up together like this. That's just how I like to store it. And then I will show you that new transistor that we put on, which is this guy right here. So it's a B772, but we're going to pretend that it was a B772 from the beginning. I pulled off a B772 and I put a new one on. Look how clean that is. It's facing the proper direction, as you can tell from the schematic on the top. It's sitting on there perfectly. And the bottom, the solder joints look almost factory. I could have cleaned them up a little bit better, but they look almost factory. And then, like how I showed you cleaning this side with the rubbing alcohol, you could also clean the top if you really want. Just be careful not to scrub the board too much, because you could damage it and scratch it. And then if you really want to, this is also a good time when you're working on the board to go over every solder point and resolder it, just to make sure it has a really good, nice connection. But all these look pretty good. But yeah, that's pretty much it for this. And you guys have seen my board work before in the 2007 Jason video where I restored his board. Sadly, I didn't show you guys how to change the transistor in that, but I figured I'd make it up to you since a lot of people had asked me to go ahead and show a demonstration on how to change a component on the board. So this was that video. And one last little tip before I go: never store these with these in the down position, because you'll wear out the spring internally for the mechanism. Always leave them stored completely expanded and up. So yeah, that's pretty much it. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. I hope I taught you guys something. And if you have any questions, please feel free. I keep telling everybody in the comments that has a question on repair tips, DM us at JemmyMaster on Instagram, or you can leave a comment in the comment section. I have no problem with that. If you want any of these items, I'm not going to leave a link to transistors. That you just have to look up the number. But I will leave a link to this soldering station. I will leave a link to the the board holder, and some isopropyl alcohol, so that, and this solder sucker, because this is a very nice one. And then you guys can go ahead and get whatever it is that you would like. I'll also leave a good handheld kit in the description for you. And then whatever you guys would like to buy. If you don't have anything, if you have some stuff already, I'm sure it works great for you. You don't need new stuff. But for those of you that don't have anything, this is a good way to learn. And I would not recommend trying board work as your first repair. Definitely start with connecting just 2 wires. Practice that. Practice connecting 2 wires. Practice connecting a wire onto a speaker. Practice connecting a wire onto a motor. And then slowly start going up to board work. And try with motherboards that on items that are completely damaged and you know will never work again. And then once you know you're okay to do that, then start, saying, oh, well, my childhood favorite item isn't working. Let me go ahead and attempt to fix that now. That's the process and way that you should move up to get to that point. So, yeah, that's pretty much it for this video, guys. I hope you guys all enjoyed, and I'll see you all next time.